As you all know, the Packers build their team via the draft. What are the Packers' biggest needs and how might they address them through the draft? Let's jump in and find out.
Yeah, I've been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay. Hey. Yeah. Ain't no errors, baby. It's a new era. I wake up early feeling rich like I'm Kesha.
All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Sounds Gouda. My name is Jordan Olson, and my co-host over here and best friend is Rob Relf. As always, thank you for our new and returning listeners. We're Packers nerds, and we're talking Packers football. So new episodes every Wednesday and Saturday on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. So, we've already been talking about it, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper into what the Packers' needs are. As we mentioned, they typically build their team through the draft. They add a couple key free agents, as we did last year from time to time when they have money. But really, our roster, the foundation, is built through the draft. So we're going to talk to you about 6 positions of need, why those are positions of need for us at this point in time, maybe kind of what our depth chart looks like, and maybe who are some people early on that we think could fill some of those roles for us. So, Rob, why don't you kick us off here and tell us about what the Packers need in the draft?
Yeah, I'll start off with one of the biggest ones in cornerback. Why? Jaire Alexander being one of those main reasons why, depending on what happens with him. Stokes, Rochelle, and Corey Ballantyne are also going to be free agents. We got some depth. We're needing some depth. Alexander, Nixon, Valentine, Bullard, and King are projected kind of first line of defense there. All the puns intended there for the cornerbacks.
Well, that's kind of our current depth chart right now. So, that's if we were to start the season, obviously Jai is a guy you'd pencil in as our starter if he's on the roster. But then the remaining players we have are Nixon, Valentine, and Bullard, which played a majority of the snaps. And you still got Kevin King there, so.
Yeah, and then
Kalen King, my bad.
Kalen King, yeah, don't pull Dontavian Wicks on me. So there's just some early names too that we've talked about as well, though, as far as draft needs goes for a cornerback position. But Trey Amos from Ole Miss, who we really like, Siobhan Ravel Jr., Eastern Carolina, who I've watched some tape on, who's really good, and then Darian Porter, who's got some good length and speed, who could be a possible, maybe debatably day 3 type of pick, depending on how he tests, from Iowa State. So. Cornerback being one of those major needs for us, and definitely I would be shocked if we did not get, like I've said before, a high cornerback pick in the first couple of days.
Yeah, I think it's very likely that we take one or need to take one in rounds 1 or 2. Typically, if you want to get a high-end starter, it's got to be early in the draft. But with the depth chart issues that we have as well, if we do get rid of Alexander via trade, cut, whatever, you really only got 4 guys, so I could definitely see them drafting somebody, later on too, day 3 to fill out that depth chart and come in and compete. So look for the Packers to attack the cornerback room both early and late. And as we get deeper into the offseason, we'll come at you with some of those day 3 names that you could look for. So the edge. So we need an edge rusher. Why do we need an edge rusher? You don't have to look any farther than the 2024 productivity that unit provided. We know that Rashawn Gary came on a little bit towards the end of the season when they traded Preston Smith. We got some productivity out of Brenton Cox Jr. and Aaron Mosby, although that it moved the needle, but it didn't really fully get to the point that we ever needed it to be to make an impact. Other reasons, LVN has not made that jump that we expected from him as a former first-round pick. What our depth chart looks like right now, we have Rashawn Gary, LVN, Engabari, Cox, and Mosby, so we don't necessarily, from a body standpoint, have to add anything else to that room and just hope they develop. But I sure think that via the draft or free agency, that if we added a true impact player, that could unlock the defense. So what are a few names that are out there for the Packers right now that you like that they could address them through the draft?
Yeah, so Mike Green from Marshall, who's been blowing up the interwebs with his bull rush. He converts well to speed to power, a little bit on the shorter, kind of lighter side, 6'3", 251 pounds. But he absolutely looks like he can play. He's already taken a lot of those Senior Bowl tackles to school, from what I've been seeing there pretty consistently. So I'll be honestly shocked if he makes that out of the top 20 picks. Absolutely love him. Would love the Packers to get him. To be quite honest, I think he would just add a very good element to this defense, and I think he could come in right away and make quite a big impact. Shamar Stewart from Texas A&M, definitely a lot more of a projection project type of edge. He does have the measurables. He's like 6'5" or 6'6", 290. But his production in college is not as good. He's only had 4.5 sacks in 3 seasons for that type of length and versatility that he brings there. So definitely not as much there for him, and would be a lot more of a project. And we all know that that's probably an eye for Goody, as he does like to take those projects and develop them. But I would argue that the Packers need more of an impact that's had college-ready production that can come in right away and make an impact on the edge for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's some more popular names out there too, and we're going to explore those. One guy that I kind of like, I kind of think he's, again, I mean, it's hard to, school comparisons are interesting and that you find guys, but Kyle Kennard is a day 2 pick that I kind of like. If we miss on a first round guy or we address corner, another position there, he's a guy that could be a day 2 pick, 254. He's a little bit more speedy than Enagbare. But, that's where Enagbare went to school too. I kind of have a Kingsley Enagbare comparison to him, so I don't know if we get something different. But I like Kyle Kennard as a guy the Packers may be interested in. Not sure he totally diversifies the room. We'll see as we learn more about Kyle Kennard this offseason. So Rob, tell me about the wide receiver room and why the Packers would consider drafting a wide receiver early in this year's draft.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's a Christian Watson injury, but I'd also put in here too just some of the inefficiencies that happened to the wide receiver room later on down the season. I will also add on this as well, the drops issue is a major problem, and for Jordan Love too as well. So those specific things, but we do need speed. With the Watson injury gone, he did a really good job of opening up the field for the other wide receivers to be able to make some plays. So Romeo Doubs also too is in question here for 2025. He went down with that bad concussion, so we're not quite sure. That stuff can kind of linger on and is pretty critical for those players too as well. So obviously we want him to be healthy and ready to go and wanting to play and not just have his brain be full of mush. So our depth so far looks like this: Reed, Wicks, Melton, Heath, Doubs, and then Watson, who's on IR. So easily adding in another impact player, Jalen Royals, Emeka Enabuke, the stud wide receiver from Ohio State. I probably butchered that. Do not judge me. And then Jaden Higgins from Ohio State. Kind of more of a Christian Watson. Doesn't run as fast as him, but more polished in your route running and can catch the ball. Seems like he can catch everything from what I've been hearing too at the Senior Bowl so far. So anything you'd add to that, Jordan?
No, other than just, we're fumbling through learning a lot about players as we're talking about them. But if you're listening to us, Jaden Higgins is an Iowa State product, not Ohio State. And, Christian Watson, obviously, if you're going to play the, word game with us, he's not on the IR now, but will be at the start of the season and probably will miss, week up until week 12, 13, I guess we'll see. He's a hard worker. It wouldn't surprise me if he was back a week or two before that, but I think that's pretty optimistic opinion at this point in time. So I like the names you provided. And Ibuke, probably more of a first-round pick, and a chance at Jaden Royals and Jaden Higgins in the second round on day 2. So offensive line. Why do we need an offensive lineman? 2 reasons, really. Josh Myers is an impending free agent, and I think that's the biggest place that we tab the Packers for an upgrade on offense, despite needing to replace speed or wide receivers due to injury. So we also could use a little bit more depth. We saw in that Eagles game after our, with no Jordan Morgan available, that after our top 5, what we have was pretty inexperienced and maybe lacking a little talent. So we could add one more quality offensive lineman through the draft. The Packers usually draft multiple, so I expect them to attack this with at least 2 picks, an interior guy or and a tackle, or 2 of those prospects that are tackles and they feel good about, one of them at least converting to the inside. Andre Dillard's also a free agent. So right now, your projected starters, if Josh Myers walks, would be Walker, Jenkins. I'm putting Sean Ryan as the starter. That could really be Elton Jenkins as well. Jordan Morgan at guard. He was rumored to win that right guard position last year. And Zach Tom, I don't even want to have a conversation about moving Zach Tom off a right tackle. He should have been an all-pro there. So we're going to leave him right in that spot. But after that, we've got Telfort, Glover, and Monk, which we have a lot of questions about, like the potential of Monk. The other 2 guys, I think, are kind of what those guys are. So that we could use a little bit more help on offensive line. We talked about one of these guys extensively on our last pod, but look for Gray Zabel, a tackle prospect from North Dakota State that profiles as more of an interior offensive lineman at the NFL level. And then Seth McClung, another Senior Bowl player, center from Ohio State. We love our starting offensive linemen, especially centers from Big Ten schools and Senior Bowl guys. So excited to learn more about him. But we'll have more names for you coming this offseason. But 2 ways they could address the center position in the upcoming draft. So talk to me about linebacker, Rob.
Yeah, so why do we need to draft linebacker? It's going to be who is going to be next to Quay and Cooper and how are we going to build out that room. McDuffie and Wilson are scheduled to be free agents, so we'll see if we can get one of those back on some pretty cheap contracts. We got Tyron Hopper, obviously, that had very limited time and is still very early in his projection of what he's going to be, but you never know what he can bring too as well. So just building out, making a more well-rounded linebacker room next to Quay and Cooper. Let's hope that Quay Walker can take that next step too as well. We all know how we feel about Edgerrin Cooper. Some early names though, as far as draft prospects go, but Demetrius Knight II. It's a very king name, all the puns intended, linebacker from South Carolina. That's got some good height measurables, 6'2", 245, projected at a 4'6", 240, and would be somewhere around a day 2 pick. So
yeah, I liked his some initial things I saw from him at the Senior Bowl so far. I'm going to kind of keep a track of him throughout this offseason. I know that they're meeting with some other guys, but I certainly expect them to add at least one linebacker through the draft, knowing that, they could re-sign both McDuffie and Wilson and probably be fine going into next year. My guess is that they're going to want to replace at least one of those with a young guy that's got some upside. So we'll see what happens there. And then TJ Slayton is leaving, so we have a need at defensive tackle. We also talked about our defensive line productivity. Mostly we're talking about edge, but outside of Devontae Wyatt, we got little to no pass rush from our interior defensive line. Kenny Clark really took a step back. No pun intended, or pun intended, TJ Slayton is leaving us with that gaping hole in the run stuffing game. So I don't know, what are your thoughts about us finding a defensive tackle in this draft? I know it's an extremely deep prospect draft this year for defensive tackles.
Yeah, I really like it. A lot of articles are actually putting Walter Nolan, that we have on here from Ole Miss, as the first defensive tackle gone, just because he can play all 3 downs. He's extremely disruptive. He's got good pass rush abilities. He's a good run stuffer too as well. So don't be shocked. So far, a lot of draft, gurus and experts have this Walter Nolan going from Ole Miss as one of the first. Kenneth Grant from Michigan is another phenomenal prospect. Just from what he's done and from what I've seen on tape, he would immediately be another really good TJ Slayton replacement as well. I would be absolutely thrilled to get him. There's a lot of defensive tackles and extraordinarily deep, but then also another one of my favorite ones, and a DeForest Buckner, a reincarnated prospect, but Derek Harmon from Oregon, who anchors in that middle of that Oregon defensive line, is extremely long, very, very big, very physical, has freaky traits, and quite literally, his comp, at least to me, without even me seeing what other people are comping him as for an eyeball test, he looks like a DeForest Buckner with extremely long arms too. So I'd be absolutely ecstatic to get him.
Yeah. Love all those guys. Love all those guys as first-round projections to the Packers. And while defensive tackle, again, with the depth you've got there with Wyatt and Brooks and Colby Wooden, isn't an immediate need. If you are looking for an upgrade or an opportunity to move past Kenny Clark potentially after, 2025, if he doesn't get back to form, it's a pick that would make a lot of sense to me. And, the Kenneth Grant, Slayton brought a lot in terms of, what he was able to do as a former, I think, 7th-round pick. Yeah. You talk about adding a guy that's got Slayton's size, that has first-round talent, and
pass rush ability.
That would be crazy to me to insert there next to Kenny Clark or Devontae Wyatt as somebody who could stay on the field for 3 downs with that size. I don't know. I would, it's just like shades of like Gilbert Brown status player for the Packers, probably even, I don't even remember what round Gilbert Brown was drafted in, but he would be an extremely talented run-stopping defensive lineman and one of my early draft crushes for the Green Bay Packers.
Yeah, if we don't come out of this draft with a big bruiser or two, I will be absolutely shocked. So a lot of good talent, a lot of good prospects. Pretty excited. Thank you, everyone, for coming back and taking a listen to us. We do have new episodes every Wednesday and Saturday on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Let us know. It is draft season for us, too, so we are rounding into all this stuff. Let us know if we have missed a prospect or if there's a prospect maybe that you all like. So let us know your feelings below. Just know that Jordan and I are on X as well. So Jordan is at Olsen Jordan, and I am at Sounds Gouda with 3 A's. But yeah, that's it for today's episode, Packers fans. We hope that you have a good morning, a good afternoon, and a good night. Take care. Go Pack Go.
Been wanting this shit forever. I've been in the field with whatever they throw at me. Brush it off, pick myself up, moving on to the better. Okay. Hey.